Good evening.
Good evening.
How's everybody?
We're doing great.
Great.
Hope you are.
I'm excited to be here.
You're always excited, Dale.
I am. I've
Story
just
of
had
your
the
life.
best time today.
I'm not going to ask what you did.
Yeah, I better not tell it. I might have to defend it in a court of law.
Yep.
Got a lot done today. Lot done today.
Carrie, your book should be on the way.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, Dr. Stone.
That's good.
I appreciate that.
Okay.
Thank you again, Dr. Lamb, for your help yesterday with my skip and task string.
No worries. Good to go. That's the easiest thing I did yesterday. I can handle things something as simple as that, but that makes a difference. I don't blame you. That was glad that could get fixed. All right, I'm gonna share my screen and get rid of that and do that and that. All right. I've still got a couple more minutes here. I'm early for the first time today. And so, Dr. Worrell, are you doing any, you're doing superintendent coaching. Are you doing anything with alternative pathways, TP3, and any of that right now?
Only if it's part of the Leandro work. Working with the state board with the 6 Leandro school districts. So only if it happens to be part of that at this point.
Yeah. Now, how widespread is Leandro money going to be distributed beyond those 6 districts?
It really will be quite a bit once the individual schools, because we will have schools. So we will have Leandro schools that may be outside of the Leandro school districts.
Right. That was my understanding, that some districts are getting some Leandro money. That's what I was talking about. This new program initiative that we're looking to target. It's basically an alternative pathway funded through Leandro that won't be for the Leandro district specifically. It will be for people who get some low wealth money, some of that money.
Exactly.
And so we got another document this week, you know, the visioning of going forward that falls in that alternative pathway. They're looking more and more at that. And it doesn't have to be so much a programmatic change as it's more of a grow your own kind of thing, allowing superintendents the flexibility to identify and get certified their own people locally to fulfill the shortages that they have. So that's interesting.
It really is interesting, and folks can use their ESSER money for that too. So, you know, you've got ESSER 2 and you've got ESSER 3. And if we turn in our ESSER plans by May 7th, we can use them right away. If you submit your plan after May 7th, you'll still have your money, but it will not be available to you until after July 1st. So, and that money you can use 2023, 2024.
Right.
It is very flexible, and you can use it on anything that you tie to something that happened this past year because of the epidemic. So anything that happened, as long as you can show a connection,
Right.
you're good to go.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm thinking that's going to be an avenue for us. Some of those.
I think it's very positive in
Yeah.
getting folks who are thinking about certification to get more folks who already have master's degree, who have strong backgrounds.
Right. Yeah, I think that's it.
Mhm.
One of the things that I think that we're going to see from the pandemic is people are going to be less willing to spend their own money. If there's the opportunity for them to hook into some district reimbursement or support.
Well, and if you remember, Dr. Lamb, when you and I, when we were in Charlotte met, folks were paying for we were reimbursed our tuition
Right.
back
Exactly.
in those.
That's what I mean.
Mhm.
We've kind of come back full circle to that again.
Mhm.
And I'm quite sure you were the same way. When we were at Chapel Hill, we got the General Assembly gave us support, and we
Right.
were paying a much reduced rate. If I remember correctly, we were paying $270 a course, $90 a credit hour is all we were having to pay back then. Because
Yes.
General Assembly, I mean, that was like 1/4 of the actual cost or 1/5. The General Assembly was supporting us back then. And then now we've gone through several years with no support. And because of the pandemic and the financial situation that a lot of folks find themselves in, I think we're going to have to get back in that again if we're going to find people who are going to be willing to do this.
And really demonstrating our support for our educators, demonstrating how important it is to be continual learners, to have that growth mindset, and really invest in our educators.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's a big part of it as well. Well, I guess we better get started. Welcome everybody to our interviewing town hall tonight. I've got a couple of, first off, I want to welcome all the faculty that's joined me this evening. And I want to do a little housekeeping things here. I don't think we have any of those folks with us tonight, the MEL 601 add-ons, but if they are, if you're interested in accelerating into the doctoral program in the fall, either in EDCI or in EDLS, that's curriculum, or in administration, you need to get in touch with me. I'll send this agenda out when I send out the link to tonight's recording. But we have a special deal for the people who started this semester. I don't think any of them are with us tonight, but if you are, we got a special deal where we can move you into your first doctoral course in the fall, where you take 601 the spring, 603 in the summer, and then you would still taking 605 in the fall. With Dr. Whirl or Dr. Stone, you would take 730. If you're interested in that, if you're with us and you're interested, let me know. Otherwise, most of the folks that are with us tonight are going to finish either this spring or this summer. I'd like to go ahead and plug our 3 doctoral programs that we have. I've got the names of the program coordinators on the screen. Obviously, we've got school administration with Steve Laws. That's a continuation of the programs that you're in now. We've got curriculum and instruction with Dr. Putnam. And we've got DEOL with Dr. Hamilton. DEOL is organizational leadership. That's for people who work in who would like to work in community college or small college or other nonprofits. It's outside of traditional K-12 education. We do have a doctoral program for that as well. So those are the names. I'll need to go ahead and put their program on here. This is EDCI, And this is DEOL. So if you're interested in any of those programs, they'd love to talk with you. They will send you handbooks. We opened up recruiting season for the fall on April the 1st. So now is the time, if you're interested in any of those programs, to let us know. Also, for all of you folks that are in 603 add-on and 604, or if you're in 605, and you want to start interviewing this spring for fall jobs, and you aren't completing in May, if you're waiting till summer to complete, we do have the option to get in touch with Miss Wendy Turbyfield, who's our licensure coordinator, and she can send you a letter that you're in good standing and will complete on August 1st and be licensed back retroactive to August 1st, which a lot of districts will let you go ahead and interview for fall jobs for August if you're going to finish this summer. Again, if you want that letter, some of you've already requested it. If you want that letter, you get in touch with Miss Wendy Turbyfield, and there's her email address. So that's the housekeeping that I have tonight. And so I'm going to dive right into interviewing. You got in this program, the programs that you're in, either the master's program or the add-on licensure program, to do two things. Number one, you got in to get out. And number two, in order to get a job. And so you're going to have to go through an interview process. Many of you, it will be your first administrative job. Some of you are already assistant principals. But these are the 4 types of assistant principal interviews that you would have to go through, and I'm going to go through because there's variations on each of these 4 themes. And I'm going to start out tonight by going through some general best practices for interviewing, and then I'm going to dive into each of these 4 different types. Now, every district doesn't use all 4. Some use all 4, some use 3. I don't know any that don't do at least 2 of these rounds of interviews before hiring. And so the 4 types are the applicant pool. That's the first level when they're collecting up your information. They do a number of things with you. They can do a strength finder type survey with you about your dispositional behaviors. They could do a reasoning activity. They may do a virtual. They may do a data type. But regardless, there's something that gets you into the pool of applicants. That's the first round. All large districts do that. Even some of the smaller districts are starting to do that as well. But there is some kind of this kind of thins the herd. You may not ever even physically be in the same room with somebody or talk with somebody. It's just an activity that gets you through that initial round of resumes that they get and get you actually into the applicant flow. And that's what we call, that's the applicant pool, the first round interview. The second round generally is a group interview. And I've got a couple examples of those where you have to interview with a group of people. Some of them are lay people. Some of them are teachers in the school. Some of them are parents. Some of them are community members. But that's generally your second round. Your third round is with the individual principal of the school that would be hiring you. And that's when your chance to shine happens. And then the fourth round that's happening more and more is pretty much standard now, is either the superintendent or the area superintendent interviews you. Dr. Worrell's with us tonight, and she was in Guilford. Guilford was one of the first places that I remember back in the day that started doing that for assistant principals. Superintendent always sets in on principal interviews because he's their direct supervisor. But I remember back in the day, Guilford, when I was still in Charlotte-Mecklenburg, and the superintendent wasn't really setting in on AP interviews. That's before we had area superintendents, that Guilford started doing that. The superintendent started setting in on the AP interviews, the finalist interviews, because what his notion was is this is going to be my biggest applicant pool for principals. And so Don't be surprised if the area superintendent or the superintendent doesn't do a final round interview with you before you are recommended to the board for hire. So those are the 4 types of interviews that you have. And so let me first off do some thoughts about interviewing, and then we'll go through each of these 4 types of interviews. So let me close that. All right, so the first thing is just a general notion of interviewing. So it's my top 10 for interviewing. And so here we go. Dress for success. I don't care if it's summertime, you know, you dress for the job you want, not for the one that you have. So make sure that you're dressed appropriately. I've told the story 1,000 times. I had an AP candidate come in the summertime, and it was during the work days, and he came and he said, I've got my work clothes on because we're moving books and doing things in the school. And I said, come on. But the problem is he didn't have his good wig on. He was wearing a wig, but it wasn't his good wig. So if you wear a wig, that's fine, but wear your good wig. He came in and he had a wig that was kind of cocked to the side, kind of like a ball cap, and I couldn't figure out which way he was looking. I'm sure he would have been a great candidate, but I couldn't hire him because I couldn't ever get over the fact that, if you're wear your best clothes. If you're in some situation where you can't, at least be clean, neat, and presentable, but look the part. Take a 2-page evidence summary with you. Summarize your 6 evidences in 2 pages or less. Don't offer it unless they ask. We've been doing evidences for 10 years now. Most principals or most people in an interview situation are not going to ask you for that because they know what the 6 evidences are. But some of them might not. But also, you can email the link to your competency folio. Remember, we've told you that. That's a great portfolio. People want to see some evidence of your work during your preparation program, during your internship. The best thing to show them is a link to your competency folio. But I would also do a 2-page summary or 2 pages or less of the 6 evidences that I did. Research both the school and administration, look at the state report card and TWC, know the background, the administrative team, same things that we teach you to do during your courses. Know what you're walking into, know what their scores are, know what their TWC, know as much as you can know about them, because they're going to ask you, they may ask you to disaggregate data. They may have you look at something from their school and disaggregate it and give you a quick and dirty action plan. They give you like 20 minutes. Don't get caught cold on that. Know what you're walking into. Know what you don't know. EVOS, PowerSchool, PowerSource, RTI, PBIS, MTSS, all those things. Now, what that means is what you've seen from the teacher side of the desk is different from what the administrative side of the desk is. You've only ever seen PowerSchool from the teacher portal. You need during your time as a clinical intern, you need to get the AP or the principal to show you what the administrative side of all these things look like. It's much more involved. And so when you walk into an interview and they say, do you know about EVOS? I would say, I can read and interpret my individual teacher report. I have seen the school report, but I would need to learn more about it. Or I have seen PowerSchool from the teacher portal. I've used the teacher portal. I have seen it from the administrative side, but know that you don't know everything, but they won't expect you to know everything. But you need to know, yes, I've seen all these things from the teacher side. I understand that they're much more involved from the administrator side, but I'm going to be able to get up to speed on those things very quickly. I'm going to go and get certified to do evaluations quickly because I understand that the evaluation system is much more involved than just what I've seen from the teacher side. That I'm going to need to get certified by the district to do formal observations, and I'm going to do that quickly. And that I understand that all of these different things, EVOS, PowerSchool, PBIS, RTI, MTSS, they're all about instruction in the bottom line, which is student achievement. And that until I can get up to speed that I will be a liability, but I'm going to get up to speed very quickly so that I can be part of the solution instead of part of the problem. Have a humorous anecdote about how you were able to turn a negative into a positive. Every form that I get reference, I did 2 today, wants to know a time that you were faced with a challenge or a negative and how you dealt with it. So have a little humorous story about that. Be prepared to discuss hours and responsibilities honestly. The school will not get any closer to your house just because you get a job there. The traffic won't get any better. And so if you got to pick up your kids at 4 o'clock every day, then I wouldn't sign on for work at a secondary or a late start school that doesn't get out till 4:30, 4:45. I've told the story. I went to Hickory Grove. I walked in, I was there supervising an intern, and there was a picture of one of my former students. And I went in and talked to Principal Aquanetta. I said, "How's she doing?" She said, "Well, I've already let her go." I said, "It's not even cold weather yet. What are you talking about?" She's still on the new faculty bulletin board out here in front. She said, "Well, she took this job, interviewed and took this job, didn't say, and knew it was a late start elementary school that we didn't get out till 4:45. And before school even started, came in and told me that she had to leave at 4 o'clock every day to pick up her children from daycare." And I told her she could just go ahead now and get them. You need to talk honestly about those kinds of things. If it's too far from your house, don't go. Do not go. If you know the traffic's bad or whatever, if it's in a part of town, do not go. You need to be honest about those kinds of things. They're looking for a team member, and you need to be a viable team member. So be prepared to discuss hours and responsibility honestly. Know your strengths and weaknesses. Now, this is a trick question. You're going to get this at about every level. They're going to ask you what your strengths and weaknesses are. And so here's the answer. Your strengths are always dispositional. I'm honest. I'm on time. I'm forthright. I'm responsible. I'm hardworking. I'm dedicated. I have a strong work ethic. I'm legal. I'm moral. I'm ethical. All those things that I'm a fully formed adult. These are things that won't change. So your strengths are always dispositional. Don't talk about your technical skills because those things change. You may not be up on the latest version of all those things, but those dispositional soft skills, that's what you highlight as your strengths, is the kind of person that you are. Now, the trick question is, what are your weaknesses? Your weaknesses should always be based on inexperience. I have not gotten certified to do observations yet, but I will the first week I'm on the job. As soon as it's available, I will get that training. Everything that you speak about, and don't speak about more than 2 or 3 weaknesses, are all things that can be fixed shortly with experience. So your weaknesses should always be centered around inexperience. It's my first time, it's my first job, but I'm a fast learner, I'm a hard worker, I'll get it quickly. Strengths are always dispositional. Weaknesses are always based on inexperience. That way you don't hurt yourself. Don't discuss salary, experience steps, national board pay, etc. Don't engage in gossip or negative talk. And then my biggest pet peeve of all, it goes back to number 6, but it encompasses all this. Don't interview for a job that you wouldn't take. I have people all the time say, "Well, I don't want to work over there in that district or that school or whatever. I just want to go and see what questions I ask to get some experience." That's not my job as a principal to get you experience. I'm trying to find the best person I can find. If you know that it's too far from your house, or you're not going to work on that side of town, or the traffic's too bad, or whatever, then don't go. Don't go and waste people's time. Never walk into an interview at a place that you know before you go that you wouldn't take the job they offered it to. Never do that. Your behavior you will come off as flippant or conceited or arrogant, and the word will get around. If you show up for a job interview at a school, what you're saying to that person that you're interviewing with is if you offer me this job, I'd take it. I've already figured out all the other stuff. If I don't know how much it pays, I call the HR office to figure out what the salary would be. I know where it's located. I know how long it's going to take me to get here. I've got my business handled, my child care or whatever else of my private life, my personal life. I've got that handled. I'm showing up here. I'm ready to go to work today. If you want me, I'm ready to go today. It will change your attitude. Do not interview for a job that you know that you're not going to take before you go because of where it's located or the kind of school it is. That's insulting. All right, so that's kind of the overview of that. Now, when you're in that interview, they're going to ask you a lot of things, and then they're going to ask you, is there anything that you'd like to know? I would suggest that you might ask some little simple question that shows you've been paying attention. But other than that, you don't have any questions, especially you don't have any of these kinds of questions. So here are the 5 things that you never ask during an interview. First one is, when will I be promoted? How long do I have to be an AP before I get to be principal? Well, it's going to be longer because you're not going to get to be an AP. Don't try to run over top of the principal and get their job while you're interviewing to be their AP. That's not good form. Number 2, what's the salary? If you need to know what the salary is, contact HR. The principal can't talk to you about salary. People at that level. You need to find that out before you go and interview for the job. Number 3, when can I expect a raise? Well, it's according to how, it's all performance based. What kind of flex times options do you have? Do you understand flex time is in public education? There is no such thing as flex time. That's illegal. Again, be able to speak honestly about your responsibilities and time and those kinds of things. But flex time is not an option. Time off or going and leaving early to get your kids, that's not, that you might as well just tell them I don't want to be hired. And then again, number 5, any question that shows you haven't been listening. So when they get through asking you all these questions and they say, is there anything you'd like to ask? I'd ask one follow-up question, something that I made sure that I didn't hear that they hadn't already told me. But I would definitely not allude to anything like these. Promotion, how long you have to stay, raises, money, time off, vacation time, sick time, flex time. Any of those kinds of things shows a lack of commitment on your part. All right, so those are things not to ask. Okay, 10 things you need to know about your job interview. The most important thing on that one is they're trying to find the best person. That's what's important. That's what I mean. Don't waste their time. If you are not going to go, if you know you aren't going to work there, then don't go to the interview, because they want to find their job is to find the best person for the job. They're not just trying to get you experience. They're busy. First 2 right there. We could go through all 10 of these, but they're trying to find a person. They're busy. They're afraid of making the wrong hire, somebody who's crazy or a problem. You come in and start talking about money and time off to start with. Ooh, that's red flags. We want to hire you and we want you to help us. And we're wondering what you're not telling us. And that kind of goes back to your resume. You shouldn't have any gaps in your resume, and you should have at least 3 references. That 2-page reference resume that you have. We all, my default is if I see somebody with a gap in their work history, my default is I assume that they were in prison. That's just my default. Otherwise, why didn't you tell me where you were? So my default is if you've got a gap in your work history, my assumption is you're in jail. You should not, we wonder what you're not telling us. If I see a resume that doesn't have any references on it, that's a red flag for me. What are you not telling me? So These are the things that you need to remember about your interviewer. They're looking for somebody, they're busy, it's not their job to get you experience. They worry about making the wrong hire. They worry that you're not telling them everything that they need to know. They'll be looking at that resume. They want to make sure that there's no gaps in your employment. They want to make sure that you at least have some references on there, some general references, and you can provide more later. Those are the kinds of things that they're looking for. So you got to look at it from their perspective as well. All right. 5 things to bring on your interview. And that goes in with what I was just saying. You need to bring your resume, 2 pages max, with at least 3 references, no gaps in employment. Cover letter says why you want this job, references. All right. The strategic plan and portfolio, that's kind of like your the 2-page summary of your evidences. That's kind of your strategic plan, and your portfolio is your actual competency portfolio, your portfolio. Those are the things that you need to have access to when you come, or that you can email them, or that they can see. These are the 5 things. This is the same for everywhere. Current resume, 2 pages max, cover letter on top of that, that's specific to that school, not just dear sir or madam, that is specific to that school. Your references, make sure that you got at least 3 on your resume, a 2-page summary of your evidences, and a link to your competency folio. Those are the 5 things that you need when you walk in for an interview. All right. And we've already, so here's what a 2-page summary looks like. I think I've got an old one here. Yeah. And it basically says, here's the 6 evidences that I did, and quickly what we did, what our action plan was, what our marketing plan was, what did we do? Just a quick and dirty. That's what we're looking at. Let's see, I've got a question. Will we have access to the documents that you're sharing? All these documents should be in your class shell under interviewing materials. And if they're not, I will send them out. But yes, they should be in your, let's see, just like this is my class shell for 603, where it says interviewing materials. That's where all these materials are. They're all right here, as you can see. Is there a recommendation on how far back should go on our resume? You should go back to high school. You should go back to when you started college. We should see your education. Sometimes your education and your work experience is mixed together. So when you became an adult, when you finished high school, from that time until you're as old as I am, we need to know where you've been, what you've been doing. You got to account for every bit of that time, all the way back to tell us about high school. I don't need to know what clubs you were in, but from the time that you were 18 and graduated from high school, your adult life started. We need to know everything about you. I mean, some people went to work and then went to school later, or went to school part-time, or did the DCP route, where they did 2 years and then worked and then finished their 4-year degree. Some people went to traditional 4-year college out of high school. From the time that you graduated from high school until the day you send them your resume, you need to be able to account for your job and educational experience during that whole time. Lorraine was one of my students down in Union County a few years back, and she had gaps in her resume. And I said, Lorraine, why do you have gaps? And she said, well, my husband, when we moved around, military dependent, said, we'd get to the new place, and I would have to wait tables until, the school year rolled around to get a job. And I said, well, why would you be ashamed that as a military dependent that you waited tables? That sounds a whole lot better than I was in women's prison making license plates. Sounds a whole lot better. I mean, I certainly would welcome the opportunity to hire somebody that was that industrious, that, would get out and do what it took to, you know, to make a family go and be successful. And so again, and you know, even if it wasn't something in your field, even if you were, you know, waiting tables or you were working at the convenience, we want to know where you were from the time that you graduated from high school. You know, it's going to make no, it's not going to make it. You don't have to tell us everything. The last couple of jobs, like teaching jobs, are the only ones that you do other than just, I was here this year. It's just one line. You don't tell us everything, your job responsibilities on every one of those jobs. If you worked at the 7-Eleven, I don't need to know. I don't need to know that you cleaned out the big gulp machine every night, or that you were on the fryer if you were at McDonald's. I don't need to know that. I just need to know that you were at 7-Eleven and McDonald's. And so the last 2 or 3 jobs, and say the last 5 years, that last 5-year time frame, that's the kind of jobs that we need to know what your responsibilities were, where you kind of bullet what your responsibilities were, just in the last 5 years. I actually was when I was driving here home this afternoon, I was on a call with one of my former students working on his resume, and that's exactly what we were talking about. He had like 15 bullets under every one of his jobs, and I said, no, you know, that's going to make it, it's going to, you know, it's going to be, you got to hire a boy to carry it around and be so heavy. You know, we're not interested in 20 years ago what your job responsibilities were at some job 20 years ago. Just the last 5 years, bullet them. The others just list where you were. We don't need to know what you did. That's a good point, Veronica. Thank you. All right. So now, the 4 types of interviews. Again, the first round of interviews is going to be something where they separate the wheat from the chaff, to get biblical on you here. You want to be the wheat and not the chaff. You want to be the one that goes on to the round where they actually start interviewing you. And so there's a number of things that they will do. Back in the old days, and it's used less and less now, they used to do a dispositional type interviewing question with you, or questions based off Strength Finder that you do in 605. That's one of the reasons why we still do that. A lot of districts will do it's kind of a questionnaire or an interview, but it's based off Strength Finder, which is Gallup Corporation. I can't share this with you because it's copyrighted materials, but basically they work off of a script and they ask you questions based on those themes from Strength Finder, and there's some landmine questions. And so a couple that you may get asked in that first round of questions, they're usually pretty straightforward. If you've been through Strength Finder, the answers are fairly simple, but they'll throw a couple of the 2 famous landmine questions that they will throw in on that interview, or usually it's a survey kind of thing that you fill it out. They'll ask you this question, and let me see. Since Jill is one of mine, I'm going to pick on Jill. All right, Jill, you can unmute yourself. How are you this evening?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. All right, Jill. So the question that you may get asked in this dispositional behavior, where they're trying to figure out what your dispositional skill level is, if the pay were the same, would you prefer being a principal or teacher?
I would prefer to be a principal.
There you go. If you say teacher, they're going to let you stay a teacher. Remember, we're changing careers here. And so at some point, what they're trying to determine is, are you wanting to be an administrator, or are you just trying to run from the classroom? That's the whole, and that's one of the first things that we have to determine when we get new administrative candidates is are they running to us, or are they running away from something else? And we will not hire the people who are running. If it paid the same, I'd stay in my classroom. Well, then we'll let you stay. Remember, you're changing jobs here. You're changing careers. And so don't, see, I told you, I knew Jill. She's one of mine. You say she didn't bat an eye. She knew exactly what the answer was. Because we've been changing our lens now for 2 semesters. That's what we've been doing, from one side of the desk to the other. And so that's the whole notion here, is that we're looking for people who want to be administrators, not who are doing this simply because they think it'll pay them more. We're looking for people who have that burning desire to lead and create schools that with a culture of teaching and learning. That's what we're looking for. Excellent. Didn't hesitate, didn't bat an eye, didn't have to think about it, didn't have to get out a calculator and do a little math. She knew exactly. She knew exactly. That's what we're looking for. Excellent. And then the other question that they'll ask you in that first round is, and I'll go to somebody else. I'm gonna see who else I got here that's mine. Oh, there's Brad. There's my man Brad. All right.
Hey,
How are you?
good. How are you?
I'm good. All right. So the question is, Brad, are you always an on-time person?
Yes.
There you go. There you go. That is the only acceptable answer. The only acceptable answer to that question is yes. Most of the time I'm early. No hesitation. Now, whether I hope it's the truth, but you got to sell it even if it's not. As we all know, school runs on a clock. Bell ring, go to class, bell ring, go to next one. Buses at a certain time, lunch at a certain time. Everything is based off time in schools. It wouldn't go well if the person that was in charge, wasn't an on-time person. I mean, that permeates the entire organization. Nobody's there to meet the buses on bus duty. Nobody's there to meet the car riders. And lunch is not on time. We're late. We're still in the hallway. All those things. And so those are two of the watershed kind of things that they'll get to. They'll ask you a lot more kind of those things, but those are the two. But they're trying to figure out your dispositional. Are you honest? Are you forthright? Are you responsible? Is this a burning desire with you? That's that first level of interview. If they do the dispositional behaviors, either an interview or a survey kind of thing. The next thing that folks are doing now is virtual interviews, where they do some scenarios and maybe even do some data analysis. And so they'll give you a data performance task. It's exactly what we did in the app cell. Exactly. They'll give you the data, have you go through it, disaggregate it, figure out what your most pressing need is, and do a little quick action plan. It's exactly the app cell. It's exactly what they'll do. They may do that with you. Another thing that they may do with you in a virtual interview setting, I can go ahead and close that now. In the virtual interview setting is they'll ask you again, when you're under pressure or when something went bad, how'd you respond? They'll give you some scenarios. Most of it's around data, but then they'll ask you a landmine question. And usually the whole purpose of this virtual interview is to see how you react on camera. And see how you can project. And so, but the big landmine question that you will normally get in a virtual interview like this is you won't even have a live person on the other side. But they'll ask you something like from 603. If there was a school system policy that you didn't agree with and you didn't think it was in the best interest of students, what would you do? And of course, everybody knows is I'd follow the policy. We're moving our time along here, but nobody can give you permission to break the law or policy. We know that from 603, and they're going to ask you that. That, by the way, is the landmine question. I don't know after the pandemic here, but prior to the pandemic, that was the landmine question in Charlotte-Mecklenburg. That was asked in the initial round, the applicant pool interviews is would you support a policy you thought was unpopular or unfair? And part of that is, if you remember our second case study in 603 about finance, it looked like a good idea to to move the money according to need, except it's against the law. But again, nobody can give you permission to break the law. Doesn't matter if you agree with the policy or not, that you're going to follow policy. You're going to follow the law and policy. That's generally part of that other. And the other is the trick. When you're doing the virtual interview and you feel like you might need some prompts or reminders, don't carry a pad and look down. If you're like me, the light will blind them from the top of your head. Here's the trick. Get you a sticky pad, a little yellow sticky pad, and turn it and write your notes on it, things as a little reminder, and put it around the margins of your laptop screen where they can't see it and they can't tell that you're reminding yourself of those kinds of things. Because a lot of times they'll give you some scenarios and they'll give you a few minutes to come back, but you're not supposed to read your notes. Like this one, they said they gave them a few seconds together, or they give you like 25 minutes or those kinds of things. And you don't want to just come back and sit down and read. You want to be able to speak to these things. If you do a virtual interview, have a little sticky pad handy. And if they give you a few minutes to do something, or they give you some data, or they give you a scenario to have you read through it, write your notes on those and stick them around the margin of your screen. If you should be looking at the screen just like I'm looking at you right now. And this is one of the things that we all have to learn when we do this is you have to look at yourself, which is not pleasant for some of us, in order to make it look like I'm looking at you. I can't look over here to the other side of the screen like this and read what's on my screen, because then it doesn't appear that I'm engaged with you. I have to look at myself in order to look at you. And so that's one of the things that they're looking for. There's little things like that on the virtual interview that they'll be looking for. So that's the second part. Now they may do a reasoning activity with you, and you'll cover this one in 605. It's called the in-basket activity right here. And basically it's a reasoning activity. And of course, this one, you can tell it's an old one because the principal was out, was a week late getting to his job, and he only had 22 emails. I get up at 4:30 and I've already got 22 emails. That's, this is modern life. So, but the notion here is they have you read through all these little emails, and then you have to classify them as urgent or important or some combination of those, and then tell what you would do in response to each of these 21 emails. This is a reasoning activity, but here is the landmine on this one. If you put anything in quadrant 3, then you have failed the exercise and you will not go on. They won't even bother to read your responses as to what you would do with the 21 emails. There's nothing, if you think about it reasonably or rationally, there is nothing that's urgent but not important. It can't be. It can't be urgent if it's not important. So if you have any in quadrant 3, and they'll do some kind of a reasoning activity, understand that this part is the landmark. And then if you get through that, then they'll actually read what you wrote about what you would do with each of these. A couple of them are law. They're fairly simple. Like the news media got in touch with you, wants to come out and film and take pictures of kids and do stuff like that. And the response is, of course, no. Get in touch with public information. Dear Dr. Brown, the newspaper would like to do a feature on you. I need to set up a time for interviewing you and some teachers and students. No, that request is passed to the public information office. We don't do that. We don't allow people with cameras on our campus, especially the FERPA laws, privacy, those kinds of things. All that stuff we learn in 603. We don't talk to the media like, the activity bus wreck scenario in 603. We don't talk to the media. And we don't talk to them even when they call or email us at our site. Just simple things like that. So that's another type of those, the initial round of interviews to get you where you can actually talk with somebody. And so those are the kinds of things that you may get involved in at that initial level. Some kind of reasoning, some kind of data, some kind of virtual, some kind of dispositional. that they're trying to figure out if you're the right person. Do you have the right dispositional behaviors? Are you wanting to be an administrator? Do you understand data and how to analyze and put a plan together? Can you look at scenarios and respond back? Can you be engaging? Those kinds of things. That's what they're looking for in that first level. It's to, to separate the contenders from the pretenders. That's what that first level is. And don't be insulted or discouraged if you don't get to talk to a live person. That's just that there has to be some way that, we can take 100 applications and get it down to a reasonable, actual, the 20 or 30 real applicants that there are. And that's what that does. And more districts are using it because it's very time consuming to go through all this process with somebody and then do a background check and find out that, that they were in fact in jail for 2 months or 2 years. They don't want to have to do that. So make sure that you understand it's not personal, that you've got to get through that first round. Now, when you get to the second round, it's going to be the group activity. The big thing about the second round group activity is they're going to give you scenarios. They're going to give you all kinds of questions and what ifs and kind of like case studies. The trick is not so much what you say, but how you say it. Let me say that again. The trick is not so much what you say, but how you say it. Can you speak to people who are not educational professionals and not make them feel like you're talking down to them or calling them stupid? Using too many acronyms or saying, oh, you wouldn't understand that. Or, you say, well, my PLC was doing RTI as part of MTSS. Well, they have no clue. Oh, you don't understand that. But basically you've made the mistake and call them stupid for your mistake. So the group activity, the group interview generally has might be as many as 12 people, but generally a good many of them are lay people. And can you speak to them in a way that doesn't insult them? Can you communicate with people who don't know all the educational jargon? So here are a couple of examples. This is group leg interviews. Describe what you perceive as your leadership style. Now, if you said, I'm a transformational servant leader, they probably wouldn't know what that means. But if you said, I earn respect and trust of parents, teachers, I'm child-centered, I focus on issues, I avoid personal conflict, I'm impartial, I try to be fair and empathetic, courteous, respectful, positive, approachable, all the characteristics of a servant leader. But you can't just say I'm a transformational servant leader because they don't understand that. We would understand inside the business. Once you've had 605, you'll understand that. But, data drives instruction. How would you help a new teacher begin to understand that use data available in schools? And so instead of talking about EVOS and those kinds of things, you would say, we're going to do, data analysis and development of teacher strategies based on the needs of students and planning collaboratively. Well, what that means is our PLC is going to disaggregate our data from EVOS. But if you said that to this group of lay people, they wouldn't know what you meant. So this is where you have to catch yourself. You know the answers to all these questions. They're really easy, but it's not what you say, it's how you say it that matters. Now, this again is in the group and it's got all these different things. And so describe instructional practice you want to see. Instead of saying Marzano's high yield strategies, you would break it down for them. I mean, the quick answer is Marzano, as we learned in 601, what we're looking for when we do walkthroughs. But they won't know what Marzano or high yield strategies are. They won't understand similarities and differences or non-linguistic representation. So we'd have to talk to them about best practices, effective use of resources, engagement, questioning, including engagement. We have to break it down for them at this level. Now, here's one specific that just came in recently. This is a new one. It's not in your group. I'm going to add it because it just came in actually today. I got this one from, I think, what is this, Spartanburg? What is Gaffney? Spartanburg 5? And this is a group interview that they do. How would you envision a typical work day as assistant principal? Give a situation where you've been a manager, a situation where you've been a leader, and a situation where you've been a boss, rank them in importance. And they give you some scenarios here, but again, remembering. And they'll ask you one about the rules again, and are you going to support the rules? But again, this is one from, and I will put this one in. But again, it's how you answer these that everybody in the room feels inclusive. I set up a Principal of the Year interview system for a district a couple of years back, and we had all the Principal of the Year candidates come in, and we had lay people. And one of the ladies that was there, I don't know what people thought she was or wasn't, but she was a young mother of a young elementary child, but she was also an attorney from Charlotte that lived in this community a mile or an hour or so away from Charlotte, was highly educated and did a lot with educational law, so knew a lot about the school system. And when one of the applicants for Principal of the Year left, she said, "How many times did he call me stupid?" I said, "I believe I counted 6." That won't go well. He would say things like, "Well, we're doing this, that, but you don't understand that, or you wouldn't know what that is," or those kinds of things. Or he would talk in such jargon and acronyms that that was just confusing. And then, "Oh, y'all not getting that," as if it were our problem or the group's problem that they didn't understand his jargon and those things. So again, when you do group interviews, it's about making a connection with these people. It's how you say it, not as much as what you say. That you can be inclusive and you can speak to parents, community members, business leaders, and professional educators in a way that they all understand and feel invited or welcome by you and your connection with them. All right, now the opposite of the group interview is the next interview, which is the principal interview. And this is where you get to show off all that stuff that you've learned in the MELS program. You get to talk all your acronyms, and you can just blow it out because you're talking with the principal now. And you can just do whatever you want to talk about. And they're going to ask you all these. See that 5 to 10 year question that was on that last one we had as well. They're going to ask you all of these questions. What's your philosophy of discipline? They're going to talk about MTSS. They're going to talk about PBIS, EVOS, test scores, disaggregate. They're going to talk all that stuff, and man, it's just like you're just rolling through. And then they got you right where they want you, because then they're going to put that knife in you. They're going to ask you that trick question about strengths and weaknesses. They're going to slide that one back in because you're feeling comfortable now. And sure enough, let's see, it's about, they'll ask you all these things, and then they'll slide that question in about your strengths and weaknesses. About 30 minutes into this, or 45, what success and failure, strengths and weaknesses. They'll get you feeling right here. Let's see, how many questions is that in? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, about 30 minutes in. They'll hit you with that landmine question again. What's your strengths and weaknesses? And remember, don't just be so comfortable that you forget. When you hear that question, your strengths are always dispositional, things that won't change. I'm honest, I'm forthright, I'm ethical, I'm legal, I'm moral, I'm hardworking, I'm on time. Those things that won't change. And my weaknesses are always based on inexperience that can be corrected quickly. But this is your opportunity to shine. This is your opportunity to show how much you know and how much you've learned. So the question is, if somebody asks you where you plan to be in 5 to 10 years, I'll be a principal of a school. It's exactly it, Veronica. I mean, you're interviewing for an AP job, you get an AP for 2 to 5 years, and then 5 years, I expect to be, between 5 and 10, I want to be principal somewhere. This is what the answer is not, well, hopefully I'll be in law school. I'm just doing this so I can get in law school, or hopefully I'll, be doing this or that or the other. The notion here is you've made a life commitment to being a school administrator. And that, 5 to 10 years from now, I expect to be a principal. Expect to be in a school and loving every minute of it. You have to show that you have a life commitment to this profession. Back to the question I asked Jill, if it paid the same, would you teach or would you be an administrator? You're making a career change, a life commitment to be a school administrator. It's not something that you do lightly. And so don't forget on the strengths and weaknesses question, don't get so comfortable that you let your guard down here and tell something you shouldn't. All right, so that's that one. And then finally is the fourth interview with the superintendent or the area superintendent. Now they're not going to talk to you about how to do a mosaic class schedule. They're going to talk to you about big ticket items. I've got a couple examples here, how to implement 21st century skills, what future ready kids look like, going through 21st century. That's the kind of thing that they're going to talk to you about is big ticket items, what your vision is for the future. That's kind of where we are with that. And so I've got a couple of these things. Now, it may not be exactly these two. Dr. Worrell and Dr. Stone, are you both still with us?
I believe Dr. Stone stepped away.
Okay.
We are here. I just had to get a light on the darkness outside. I was afraid you couldn't see my face.
All
Yes,
right.
sir.
So I'm going to call on, I think I've covered everything that I need to tonight. We've got a couple minutes left. Dr. Worrell, I'm going to give you the floor at the end. Dr. Worrell recently retired as superintendent out of Asheboro City. She's the one of us who's worked most recently in public schools. And so, Dr. Worrell, I'll turn to you. What would you be looking for? What would you be talking to these? This is a first time out trying to get an assistant principal job, and you've got the top two candidates in your office. What would you ask them? And I'll let you close the show tonight.
I appreciate it, Dr. Lamb. And currently I serve as interim superintendent in Rockingham County. And when we are talking to future administrators, we really want to know what evidence that you have accomplished that would demonstrate that you would be a good fit for what we need in our district. Projects that you have done in your current work, activities that you have been involved in, things that you can demonstrate that you can bring to the table and be ready to roll immediately. Just like Dr. Lamb said, the passion for wanting to do the job, to lead, to make a greater impact, that's what we want to hear. We also need to hear that you are at a stage in your life that you can put the time in that is needed, whether you're elementary, middle, or a high school administrator. Because as he reinforced tonight, we want a teammate. We want a person who's going to join the team. And you may be at one school for 1 year or 2 years, but we may need to move you to a different school. And just knowing that you want to contribute and that you want to make a difference in students' lives through the educators that you work with, and knowing that you are committed to doing your best every day, and you're focused on getting the great results that we need for our children, because that will open up more options and opportunities for our children if they have really strong achievement scores, and more doors will open for our students. So just that passion, that drive, And as Dr. Lamb said, you know, that you're addressing, that you're portraying yourself in the way that that's very professional for that particular job that you're interviewing for. So always dressing for your next job.
Yeah. Thank you, Doctor. Thank you, Dr. Worrell. And to kind of to close us out tonight, again, we're looking for that commitment. When that superintendent talks to you, they're going to talk about big ticket items. They're going to talk about that. They want to know that you are a professional educator, that you understand that, you know, our kids have got to be ready. And this is what it looks like. You know, you've got to have some vision of where you're going. Future ready, 21st century skills. This is what our kids need to compete in society. That you've got to, you know, you've got to, yes, you've got to put your head down and work hard, but you've got to have your head up to see what's going on in the world. You've got to portray that you're a professional in the field and you know what you're doing and you know what your goal is. And you're not just coming to work every day to get a check, that it's bigger than just us, that we're working toward a goal that is so important that it's bigger than we are. That's
And Dr.
what we're
Lamb,
trying to prepare.
and Dr. Lamb, I just want to remind folks, as superintendents, once we make the recommendation that our board hires you, we have put ourselves on the line for you. So we need for you to be great and to do well. And you want to make sure that you clean up your social media account, because if we recommend you for a job and then the board member during the board meeting is pulling up a social media account that does not reflect as a professional educator that children can look up to in our particular community, that creates quite a few problems.
Right. Again, we're trying to hire the best person, and remember, we're tied to you. And if, you know, again, my default is if I don't know where you were for 2 years, you were in prison. If you don't have any references, I think you're a bad person. Clean up your social media. You know, it's even better if you can stay off of social media. But again, you've got to understand you're going to become a part of the team, and the superintendent is going to be tied to you. And so we're not going to take any unnecessary risks. Even if you don't see anything wrong with it, that doesn't matter. Think for a minute. Some of you are a good bit younger than some of the other of us. But if I'm the one that's hiring, you've got to match my value system. I don't have to match yours. Let me say that again. This is what I'm going to leave you with. If you're interviewing with me as a senior citizen and I'm pulling the trigger, I'm the one that's going to make the recommendation to hire you. It doesn't matter what your value system is. What matters is mine. And I'm looking for somebody whose value system matches mine. And you can't say, well, okay, Boomer, and you know, you're just old and out of touch. Well, yeah, but I might be old and out of touch, but I've got a job and you don't. So you better think about that. Your value system has to match the person that's making the hiring, not vice versa. So clean up your social media, do the best, you know, mind your P's and Q's if you want to be in this business. All right, we'll have one last question here. When we ask about our strengths, we mentioned a few of the competencies that we're strong in. Absolutely, that's what you want to do. Those competencies are dispositional. That's what they are. The 21 competencies, administrator competencies, those are the 21 dispositional behaviors that you're expected to be able to show. You know, communication, conflict management, those are all competencies. That is exactly right. That's a great question, Brianna. All right. Dr. Sanders, you got anything before we close tonight? I don't see any more. I appreciate you being with us.
Well, thank you. The only thing that I would like to say, if there is someone who is military connected, I was in that boat, whereas I tell people, my husband had a job. Every time we had to move, I had to find one. So if you would like to talk to me one-on-one about how I survived it, please feel free to email me and we can do a group or either a one-on-one Zoom session.
Thank you. Thank you. That'd be very helpful for those of you who are in that circumstance. All right, I see our time is up. We went the right amount of time. We started about 5 after and we finished about 5 after. So I appreciate you all joining me. I will post this video. It will be posted in your classes. I will send it back out with the same link I sent the invite to come tonight. I will post that one new document from Gaffney High School on the group interview. I will post that one as well. It'll be attached. And so again, if you're interested in one of the graduate programs, get in touch with me or get in touch with one of the program coordinators. We'd love to have you back. Now's the time to get this done. There's money out there and there's time and programs, and it won't always be that way. So if you're interested, let us know. We'll be glad to facilitate you. I've enjoyed it this evening. Thank you for your time and attention. I'll see y'all soon.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Dr. Lamb.
Thank you. Yeah.